Welcome to the Amor Muto Discovery. You're tuning in because you care about change. You feel deeply that change is required. We're in urgent need of a lot of change. Um, my regards to all the people that are affected by the amount of brutality facing. I myself, with the Iranian heritage, know the impact of that trauma, how many generations it takes to heal. But I am nowhere near knowing what it feels like to be at the constant mercy of ethnicity and racial issues. It's really hard out there right now. So my heart goes out to all people protesting, speaking out, being anti racist, because that's one of the most valuable things we can do is value human life. Thanks for tuning in for the Amor Muto Discovery. This episode is the last in the series of four of me explaining the buildup of the energy management compass curriculum. We've had so far the empower your vulnerabilities, figuring out how you reload and when you reload best. Um, uh, then, with that information, we moved into loving yourself unconditionally, figuring out your internal language of love. Last week's episode, overcoming guilt and shame, tough topics, bit on the dark side of things. This week's episode is where it all comes together. If you uh, include yourself in a curriculum and allow yourself to develop your own energy management compass, this week's episode is live intuitively authentic, how to do that. I'm going to be sharing a little bit from my own experience. I'm going to be asking you a whole bunch of questions to think about for yourself. But first of all, I'm going to explain why this is the piece that you don't have to follow the curriculum in a chronological order, but it's the piece that ties it all together. It takes you back to your roots. One of the biggest issues I've always had in developing myself, exploring life, was how do you know what your intuition is? How do you recognize it? It's not like when you have all the voices in your head arguing between each other. Some of them built upon bad experiences, some of them built upon daydreams and wishful thinking. Which one is saying the truth, and how do I recognize my intuition? Because I've heard about it. I know people say follow that gut feeling, but am I just hungry, or am I like having a little of a block in my belly? How do I know that that is my intuition? It's really difficult. It has been difficult for me. I've ignored my intuition for a long time. And that's the course that brought me into being able to recognize my intuition very well. People who move and act and behave and are intuitive come across very authentic. And authenticity is something that's also part of this episode, which is like, oh yeah, I really like that person. He's really him or herself. And I love hanging out with them because they don't judge. And they approach everything with openness. And here we find kind of clues about what your intuition might sound like, what the tone of voice is, where it comes from, and what it's trying to bring you. Um, I think the best way to approach your intuition for me, coming from a place of ignoring it all the time, being really harsh, moving from a really forced and conflict energy, and always approaching life from a struggle perspective. The intuition, tone of voice, and also attitude towards life, I've noticed, is all about going with the flow and being in the flow. Um, doesn't mean you always choose the path of least resistance, but it does mean that you are very engaged with all of your senses. So you're not just using your head or your heart or your gut or your hands or your nose or your ears, but you're holistically present, and you are able to tap into the wisdom that is in this organism, the entire body. All of it has knowledge. It's ancient, it's been coded generations upon generations of wisdom there, keeping us alive, evolving, bringing us closer towards self actualization, realizing that, and that's also a great part of moving from intuition, realizing self actualization, realizing that you and I, we are the same, we come from the same, we belong to the same, we are part of a bigger thing, and that bigger thing is part of us. When you're able to move from that perspective, you approach everything with openness. All situations are uh, basically a glimpse of what you are, could be, and have to offer. And there's a lot of magic in that because it allows you, when you are moving from your intuition, to step away from judgment, fear. You're way more in tune with your curiosity and creativity because you see everything as a learning opportunity, and you're able to connect with everybody and everything. So this is definitely one thing that I notice when I'm not in tune with my intuition. I kind of step back, I retract. I prefer to be isolated. I prefer not to socialize because the part of my brain that is looking for problems and is fear based is taking control. While my intuition, it comes from a whole nother level. It's able to sense what feels right or less right, and what might add value to my existence, and it's really being in tune with your senses and your breath. So on one side, we've been going through the curriculum talking about all the programming we've had, recognizing the inner gremlin, recognizing our inner hero. um, all these concepts, they are on the surface. What's underneath, what's that level deeper, what's that thing that really brings it all together, brings humans together, is that intuition. And to be able to understand that your authentic you is that part of you that is moving from intuition, has a whole different level of self acceptance. And that's definitely what the energy management compass is about: loving yourself, allowing yourself to live from an abundant place, to not starve yourself from rest, from play, from pleasure, from uh, triggering your body, your mind, your emotions to perform, taking the time to reflect, recover, and learn, but not get confused by what society has created around us, but really move from inside of yourself. So it's an internal awareness tool. And to be able to manifest yourself authentically from your intuition, it's just pure joy. Like the emotion that one can carry while doing that, the emotion that allows you to connect with everybody and everything, approach every situation with openness. That's joy. That's utter joy. And it's important also to realize that um, as you are learning, because it's a process. Also, for me, I have not mastered. I am teaching it because I love to master it. I am sharing it because I've seen a glimpse of what it can mean for me, for others. The practice is that when you are able to step away from fear, um, you realize that if we are the same and we're all connected, then everybody wins because I am you, you are me, and we are one. So you focus on the whole as an emotion. You do not um, separate yourself emotionally from the group or people that you're with. And I think, again, I always refer to the wisdom that children have before they get programmed. They are able to not be shy, not be afraid of judgment, and approach all situations with curiosity and creativity. Since they're there to learn, that's their primary objective, is to understand more of the world that's new to them. And that's also an interesting thing, that when you are coming from your intuition, concept like boredom does not exist. When you are within joy, you do not get bored. All that you see around you is wonder. It's kind of weird if I think about what I'm just saying to you right now. Hearing that in my depression, I'll be like, yeah, that's nice, but it's not where I'm at right now. But you can't feel you, cannot connect with you. Um, and that's why this example of what's happening around the world right now with people protesting is very important, to realize that authenticity and following your intuition is definitely not always going to look polished. It's going to have rough edges, anger, frustration, cries, pain. Not hiding any of these emotions is what allows you to experience joy. As dark and grim it is to see a man lose his life by the hand of another, misusing authority, the amount of anger that is in these streets, the people who are allowing themselves to express that rage, express that disgust, they're in joy because they are connected, they feel one. If you hide that away, if you suppress that, then you turn into a complete internal conflict and a gridlock. And my example of a depression is also because I am not allowing myself to express my anger, to express my emotions, my fear, my loss, my grief. I assume that there is no place for me expressing these emotions, so I pour them in myself, and as a result, I shut down my intuition. So, as a child can express unfiltered the signals from your inner child, because we are all just children who have had more than 10 and 20 birthdays. This inner child still exists and is giving us signals. The primary core emotion of a human is joy. And sometimes it might seem weird to go through darker colors of expression, but the fundament remains that the authentic you is here to be joyful, to experience this marvel that is called life. Um, so how? That's where it gets interesting. How do you explore aspects of your authenticity? How do you get to know your intuition better? Listening to it, being able to hear it, first part of it, and then the process that the reason why I'm sharing this with all of you and why I think it's definitely the thing that brings the energy management compass together is because it requires practice. It requires trusting yourself and others to be yourself, to have faith in that you are good, to know that you are worth that all. But still, it requires uh, some type of approach for us to really flex these muscles and get some fitness in there. And the best example I have is of an exercise that has to do with, once again, closing your eyes and imagining uh, a long day, a full day, from the moment that you wake up, all the meals you eat, all the places you go, and until you put your head back on a pillow to sleep. And the theme of this day is play. What would a day of playfulness look to you? Why? Why do I bring up this topic of play? You might wonder, oh, that's silly. We're done with kindergarten stuff. Um, it's important to realize we humans, we have super high learning capabilities, and the best way, the fastest way for us to learn is through play. It's been showing more and more in science that kids, adults, were able to pick up languages, math, calculus, arithmetic, science, physics, coding, um, philosophy, whatever it is, through play way better than we are by just telling people to read textbooks and write reports. So that's an interesting thing. We've been steering away from how our organism is able to really learn. And if you do take the trouble to allow yourself to engage just in the mental experiment of what a playful day would look like to you, write down the list of activities, the places, the engagements, the people, the games, what was fun about it, what was playful about it, what was the objective of the game? Was there winning? Was there just fun? What was it about? Most important thing to note, and that really has to do with going with the flow and being in the flow, is that when we are playing a game, uh, our memory, our thoughts, our uh, projections of the future, all of those are put on hold and we enter the present moment with all our senses. Our entire consciousness is completely engaged. All our organs, every cell that has some kind of nerve ending connecting to it, is focused on that game. And that's a very high level of consciousness. And being completely engaged in your senses, that's what you are basically practicing when you take that imaginative day. You look at all the things you've wrote down, you pick one that you can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. What are you practicing if you engage in that activity? You're practicing to follow your intuition, strategy, concepts like winning, etc. But all these uh, types of knowledge and information and thoughts, it's going to happen way too fast. So you follow your intuition. So you're getting in touch with your intuition by using game forming, okay, by gamifying things. As you're learning to recognize your intuition, you'll probably be able to recognize also in other aspects of your life what that intuition is trying to tell you. Then it's up to you from there. The first step that I'm offering you is to explore aspects of your authenticity. And that means that, first of all, you have to notice what's the difference between what you've been taught, what you've been teaching yourself, and what that ancient wisdom is that is deep inside you. And trust me, all of us human beings, we are creative geniuses. There's a Harvard review that shows that kids before elementary school, like kindergarten kids, they all score super high on the genius level. And then as soon as we start programming kids to think in a certain way, they lose. They lose that capability, but it is engraved in us. It's not like everybody went to genius school. No, we possess it, we are born with it, and it is up to us whether we tap into that genius once more. Might be hard. What's hard about it? It's another question to think about. We've been taught to base our decisions and our steps on things that are proven externally. Okay, so if you have a very strong intuition telling you you should consider, very recent example, moving in with your girlfriend. Okay, you just met her, you feel like clicks there. The external proof, your rationale is like, oh, how smart is that? What are the risks involved? How many people do you know that moved in together after so many months and statistically marriages end up in divorce? So there is this conflict between what is proven and something you sense internally, which is faith. And basically, implementing your intuition is allowing yourself to rely on internal faith instead of external proof. And why is that hard? Because we live in a world where we care about other people accepting us, we care about other people embracing us, we care about belonging, we care about safety, we care about connection. And if your internal compass is telling you to walk an unpaved road, not only might people be judging you, but the part of you that is programmed to not approach life from a we are all one perspective is in conflict with that. It's like stay in your lane. You cannot stop judging yourself. And that's what's hard about moving out of your intuition into your authenticity. I have believed many years in my life, I always believed that I am myself. But as the years progress, I do see that I am losing some habits and developing others. And saying, this habit I had back then, it was actually not even a thing that I like to do that much, but it was just something that would make me fit in. Think about social smoking, drinking, all these things that people do to connect, to belong to a peer group, not divert. Requires a strong sense of self acceptance and self confidence to be like, oh, that's nice. You're doing something that I'm not doing. And that's great for you. And to each his own. We still fit through the same door. We still care about life. We still are authentic in our own way. I do not have to divert from my internal compass, neither do you. That conversation with another person is a whole nother level than what's happening to you subconsciously. That's why I keep emphasizing the power of play, because within a game, concepts of winning and losing are still restricted to how much impact that game is going to have on your life. When you step away from the game, you might take life too serious, and then you might give it too much thought, while the intuition, the part that's your real self, is all about the senses, and as I'm telling you this, I also realize how hard this is for me. The acceptance of what my senses are telling me not aligning with what I have in my calendar just turns me into having a horrible day if I wake up tired and I have things on my schedule instead of being like, huh, this vessel is telling me I need a day of rest. Let me make some calls, cancel some appointments, and allow myself to rest and embrace that I have a place to rest and people who care about me and are happy to reschedule. No, I'll punish myself for that. I will not only deny my intuition, I will also be in conflict with myself. And those are the days that I feel least authentic because I am in a bad place, because I'm not allowing myself to be vulnerable or less energetic that I would prefer. So I hope you understand that what I'm sharing with you today is um, self mastery, true levels of self actualization, um, weathering the tornado and realizing that the calm in the storm is inside of you. All the other stuff is just static. Easier said than done, but you didn't listen to this podcast because you like easy stuff. You like change, you care about change, and you're here to understand how you can get better at change. Um, I've already had some people repeating what they took away from the podcast, applying for the free coaching sessions. You still have 1 week to make a post with your biggest takeaway from the podcast. Tag me in it. You have 3 coaching sessions you could win worth 600 euros. And tell me what your biggest takeaway was and is and what you would like me to talk about. Just to summarize, that today's topic was about how you can approach any situation with openness, connect to everything and everyone, and access your personal creative genius. Living life intuitively, authentic, listening to the message your inner child has, and truly approaching life from a place of joy, using the wisdom that is inside you as an organism. It precedes your memories, it precedes your parents' memories. This wisdom is ancient. So, if you're ready for an experiment, imagine a day filled with play, a playful day, and write down experiments that you can do to explore your own authenticity. Mm, I think this was a wonderful session. I'm getting excited about the exercise myself. So, as I'm shutting down, I'm going to do some of it myself. Thank you for tuning in today, and Amor out.